morning to all students, teachers, panelists, and others. As we say in Secwepemc territory, Waitka. Welcome to the first annual Canadian Marine Careers Foundation School District 83 Career Exploration Series featuring the marine industry. Before I get into the introductions, I wish to acknowledge this webinar panel discussion is hosted on the traditional unceded territory of the Secwepemc people, for which we now call SAAM and ARM. I know I feel very grateful always being here on Secwepemc Hulu. We have sort of a partially cloudy, partially sunny sky, spotty rain. We've had that over the last week and a half here, and much more to come. And that's, of course, keeping things in respect to our forests maybe just a little bit wetter, and that means a little bit better for us going forward. I also wish to acknowledge literally the dozens of other Indigenous groups that do exist on all the territories that are covered in this broadcast. That also includes where our panelists are from, which is the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations. We're possibly going to have a minimum of 15 districts and public districts or independent school districts that are going to be participating in this event. That's going to consist of over 100 students and up to probably a couple of dozen teacher career coordinators. So it's great that you're here. I'm your host and moderator, George Richard. I'm School District 83's Career Education Coordinator. And now to talk about the foundation, or CMCF, here's its Executive Director, Julia Fields. She's coming to us from Ottawa this morning. I can say good morning, but in your case, of course, good afternoon, Julia.
Thanks, George, and thank you for the introduction and for helping us to set up this event today. We really appreciate it. I just want to let you guys know that the Canadian Marine Careers Foundation is a nonprofit. So we work across the country to raise awareness about marine careers and all the different types of training pathways and ways to join our workforce. We have a really amazing resource. It's a career portal. It's called imagine-marine.ca. So I would very much invite you to come and check it out. It has a lot of information about the different types of marine careers, what's entailed in those, the different ways to get training, and what those programs are, the funding and scholarships and bursaries and things that exist. And it has a lot of really fun content on it as well, videos, virtual tours, career quizzes, etc. The other thing I would love to invite you is to reach out to us at any time if you want more information or any kind of guidance to move forward. So I also would like to give you 3 quick facts about the marine sector before we get started. So one is that more than 100,000 people work in the Canadian marine sector. And they actually work in a lot of different geographies. We are blessed with many coastlines and waterways in our country. So today you'll hear about careers in BC, but there are also opportunities to work in the Arctic, in the Great Lakes St. Lawrence region, in Atlantic Canada, and even in some of our landlocked provinces, which have marine operations on smaller waterways. The second thing I want to tell you is that we need new people. So more than 43% of our workforce is expected to retire in the next 10 years. So we have thousands of new jobs that will be opening up, lots of opportunity to progress your careers and work with dynamic challenges related to the economy, the environment, and safety. And the third thing I want you to know is that there are so many different types of careers in the marine sector, different work environments and different types of work schedules. So you could be working in a port environment, in a shipyard, in an office, on board many different types of vessels, which you'll learn about today, in a research laboratory or a technology center, as well as in the government or in the private sector. So whatever your interests are, there's a place for you in our industry. And now I will hand it back over to George.
Thanks a lot for that, Julia. Just some housekeeping, administrative sort of things that we have to get forward on for today's session. For teachers and students, please ensure that you leave your mics and cameras off so that we can make sure we don't have any background noise at all, and also to protect the privacy of some during this 75-minute session. We're recording this session, so if you have to leave early, those who have registered will get a copy of the event to be able to play back later on at your leisure, or play back parts of it that you haven't seen at this point. If a student or teacher does have a question, we would ask that you would write that in the chat, please. I will then be able to read it out to our panelists to respond to. You can write that question at any time that you want. But we may not be necessarily answering that question until we get to the question portion of the meeting, which will be at the end of the presentation. So we'll just see how that all plays out when we get there. And now we're going to get to our panelists. We're going to be introducing them one at a time, and we're going to have their stories heard before we get to the next panelist, just so you know. The first person we have up there right now is Andra Papuc. She's a naval architect with Robert Allan Architects out of Vancouver. Before she starts discussing her university pathway, we're going to show you a brief video. This is from Robert Allan himself, whose grandfather founded the Naval Architecture Consultancy, who is currently, and he's also the executive chairman of the board of directors. So we can go to that video right now if you wish. If that's the case, perhaps maybe we turn it over to Andra at this point to be able to speak a bit, and we'll see if we have that video later on.
Okay, sure, no problem. I will just start. So yes, hi, good morning and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. So I am excited to tell you a bit about my own story, introduce you to the company I work for, and as you might see in the video if we play it, describe to you what a naval architect is and what we do all day long. So first, I will give you a bit of background on our company. We are called Robert Allan Limited after the founder of the company. So it was the grandfather of Robert Allan who started the company in 1930, working out of his basement right here in Vancouver, BC. And almost 95 years later, the company is not only still in operation, but is thriving and has made an international name for itself in the design of small workboats, which I will speak more about in a bit. Today, we have about 100 employees doing different jobs, from naval architects, marine engineers, and administrative staff. Our main office is in downtown Vancouver, and we also have a few employees in a small office in St. John's, Newfoundland. Additionally, we have a couple of remote workers living in Australia and Finland. We design boats that are built and operate all over the world, on almost every continent, and in every major waterway. As of 2009, we had over 1,000 vessels to our design and operation. We work with either ship owners or shipbuilders to design custom boats to suit their needs. Some examples of the type of boats we design are tugboats, which help move larger ships in and out of ports and help them maneuver. You can think of them as a towing truck on the water. Firefighting vessels, so these are used to fight fires from the water, either if another ship is on fire or a part of the port that is on shore. Science research vessels, which need to be very quiet so that they can collect their data. Search and rescue vessels being operated by Coast Guards all over the world, including the Canadian Coast Guard. Ice-breaking ships that operate in very harsh cold weather environments, and many more. If we do get the video working, you'll see small models of a lot of these types of boats in behind Rob Allan as he's speaking. Okay, so how did I get here? Well, my family immigrated to Canada from Romania when I was 9 years old. And by the time I was in high school, we had moved to a small suburb in Vancouver called Port Moody, which happens to be right on the water on a small inlet. There was a very small sailing club there that ran summer camps for kids. And in the summer of grade 9, I signed up for their beginner lessons with my best friend from school. I immediately fell in love with sailing and the water. And from then on, my path was clear. I went on to become a sailing instructor for a few years and attended the University of British Columbia. I knew I wanted to work in a design field, so I pursued a degree in naval architecture. At the time, I could only specialize in naval architecture by completing a mechanical engineering degree, so that is what I did. My bachelor's degree took 5 years to complete, which included 20 months of paid internship work, which really helped pay for tuition, And 4 of those months were completed with Robert Allan Limited. So after I graduated, I was hired on full time, and that was now 16 years ago. I started out as a junior naval architect, working on basic design drawings and calculations for all sorts of vessel designs. Under the supervision of excellent mentors within the company, I worked on vessel arrangements, structural work, weight estimates, and much, much more. I eventually moved on to become a team leader of naval architecture for projects and obtained my professional engineering license in British Columbia. I then progressed to a project manager role, and more recently, I became a project director. With each promotion came more responsibility, but I also had more experience and knowledge. And the nice thing about working for a company that works globally is that I got to travel all over the world, either visiting vessels to my design and construction, attending sea trials, visiting shipyards, attending and presenting at conferences, visiting clients or suppliers, and many other reasons. Throughout the 16 years, I have not only traveled within Canada and the United States, but to many places in Europe, such as Austria, Italy, Germany, the Netherlands, France. I have been to the UK, China, Singapore, and Turkey, to name a few. I usually travel as needed, about 2 to 3 times per year. But most days I work out of the design office in Vancouver, mostly completing detailed drawings and calculations of our boats. I manage a team of designers for my projects, a role that requires fairly good interpersonal skills, communication skills, time management, very good problem solving, and the ability to see the big picture. So this is all above and beyond the technical capability. I also communicate with our clients and suppliers on a daily basis for projects, either via email or nowadays on Teams meetings such as this one. If I am If I am traveling to a shipyard to inspect or visit a vessel in construction, I need to wear appropriate personal protective equipment, or PPE, and follow the safety guidelines of the shipyard, since it is like entering a construction site. There are lots of other different types of work in the office as well, though, including marine engineers. So they design the piping systems and propulsion systems for all the vessels. We have an advanced structural analysis team that uses a software called finite element analysis to analyze very complicated structural members. We have an advanced hydrodynamics team. We have a research and development department that helps us innovate designs ahead of our competitors. And we have a business development department that helps bring in business. So they do a lot of travel to meet clients and scope out potential new projects. In recent years, alternative fuels for reducing ship impacts on climate change has been a hot topic in the industry, and Robert Allan Limited has led the way for tugboat designs in this respect. We were among the first company to design tugboats that operate on both diesel fuel and liquefied natural gas, or LNG, and more recently, we have completed a few designs that can operate on methanol. So these are kind of cleaner fuels that burn cleaner. In fact, just last month, 2 battery electric tugboats to our design were delivered to operate in the Port of Vancouver for an operator called SAAM Towage Canada, which Alex will tell you more about in a few minutes. So there are other interesting opportunities as well besides naval architecture that are still in the design field. Since we work for clients, we have frequent deadlines to meet, and this can be a bit stressful at times, but the work is very rewarding, especially when you get to visit a vessel you designed or see a video of it in action. Besides the work itself, what I like most about my job are the people I work with, and it is evident we work for a good company when most people stay on for decades. In the design team, we have about 10 people that have been employed for over 15 years, 5 or 6 for over 25 years, and 1 that has been with Robert Allan Limited for almost 55 years, and that is not Rob Allan, that is somebody else. So it is really a pleasure to work with people that are passionate about their work. And if there is one piece of advice that I could give anyone, is exactly that. If you find something that you're passionate about, it will not feel like work. So thank you for listening to me today. I look forward to answering any questions you might have, and we'll see if we can get the video to work.
Absolutely. So I see somebody that's typing in there. In the meantime, let's see if we can get the video going. If not, I will have a question to go here in the not too distant future. So let's just see if we can get the video going. And it's interesting, the life of being in a school, a fire drill happening, but that's just life.
Hi, My name is Rob Allan. Have you ever wondered, as you walk or ride or drive alongside a river or a lake or an ocean, how the boats and ships that you see out there came to be? Why are they so big or so small? How did they get built and where did they get built? How do they float? What makes them go? And how do we know that they're going to be safe? The oceans are full of really interesting maritime craft of every conceivable type and size, from the simplest of small boats to highly complex ships for very specialized functions. We're going to talk about some of those now. There are runabouts and yachts, cruise ships and ferries, tankers, cargo ships, container ships, tugboats and fireboats, fishing boats, research vessels, icebreakers, and submarines, and many, many more. Ships of many descriptions transport goods and people across the oceans, but once they get close to port, there are tugboats to assist them, fireboats to protect them, patrol boats to make sure that they follow all the regulations, and a million other types of boats for every conceivable application. Every one of them needs to be designed by people who are well trained to create these things that float, to make sure that they perform how they're meant to be and how they're safe doing it. The person who gets to determine how big these ships are, what power they require, and how they're configured in order to perform their daily tasks is called a naval architect. This term is often misunderstood because in general, it has nothing to do with the Navy, except that many naval architects do work for navies around the world, but many more work designing pleasure craft or commercial vessels of all types, either working for consulting offices or for shipyards. A naval architect is an architect, but he or she is also a highly trained engineer because they need to understand hydrodynamics, physics, structural engineering, mechanical engineering, and a fair bit of electrical engineering. The naval architect's job is to integrate all of those capabilities into a design that works well and that hopefully looks really good doing it. Our company, Robert Allan Limited, was begun by my grandfather. We're now the most senior firm of naval architects in Canada with a history of almost a century. Our business is designing commercial workboats of all types from our office right here in Vancouver for a client base around the world. My colleague Andra is going to tell you all about how we do that, the tools that we use, how you can train to be one of us, and how much fun we have doing this amazing and very rewarding job. Listen carefully. Thank you.
And thank you to Robert. We already have a question up here. A student was curious about how fast the boats are that you design. Now, of course, you usually communicate this in knots. I'm wondering if there's a conversion you can possibly offer.
Okay, so first here I can quickly do some Google Maps. Sorry, not Google change. So
yeah,
kilometers. Yeah, so it really depends on the type of boat. So tugboats don't go too fast. They kind of max out at about 12 or 13 knots, which is a nautical mile per hour, and that's just over 20 kilometers per hour. But we do design faster boats as well, depending on the application. So just recently we finished designing, and it's actually almost being delivered now, a vessel for the Hong Kong Fire Department, but that's a high-speed craft. So that's going about 30 knots, and that's over 55 kilometers per hour. So it really, really depends. Since we're not in only one sector and we design all sorts of different kinds of boats, you need to have the general knowledge so you know how to do all the calculations and then apply to the specific requirement of the owner that's coming to you needing a boat. So it's all very customized work that we do. Yeah.
Yeah, and fair enough. And Some folks may get the sensation and think, oh, well, 50 some kilometers an hour, that's not necessarily too fast. But when you go on the water, that's a different sort of animal in respect to how quickly things go. And I can assure you that for a boat that would be for the Hong Kong Fire Department, how large that is a fairly large vessel going fairly quickly.
It is, yeah. It's about 120 feet long. So that's
Yeah.
quite long. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to keep asking questions in the chat if you have it. I just have maybe one or two more here for you, Andra. The trends of vessels that are being determined. You've been in the biz now roughly 16-ish years or so. Are you noticing a certain propensity towards people looking at different types of boat compared to others?
So yeah, our bread and butter is tugboats. We design a lot of tugboats. And honestly, I would have thought that by now we sort of saturated the market with tugboats, and how many can you really have? But the changes in the industry, especially for climate change or climate reduction, I guess, are really what's kind of driving new builds and retrofits of older vessels. So that they don't pollute as much, so that they run on different fuels or run on just electrical power. So they might be the same kind of envelope, but we're trying to fit different technologies inside. So those are the types of innovations that are happening. And within the Port of Vancouver, and in this area specifically, underwater noise is a huge topic that's always being discussed recently. And the Port of Vancouver is kind of driving this work for the entire world, really. So again, looking at different technologies for and improving vessel designs and tugboat designs so that they operate more quietly for the rest of the animals that share the same workspace as them, right? And their homes.
Okay, great. Andra, thanks for the presentation. Thanks for sharing at this point. I encourage you to stay, and I would encourage others to make sure that you put your comments in the chat or any questions that you have, and maybe Andra can answer some things later. We're going to head now to our second speaker. That's Irwin. He's a vessel operations superintendent with SAAM, SAAM, as you see there, SAAM Towage Canada. That too is based out of Vancouver. Of course, you have the write-up there. Feel free to read it as we go. But Sam, welcome to our program today in the seminar.
Okay, thank you very much, George. My name is Irwin, and I'm a port captain for SAAM Towage Canada. SAAM is one of the largest tugboat companies in the world. We work in 13 different countries, and I'm located in British Columbia, where we have a fleet of 27 vessels. What do tugboats do? Well, if you can imagine a huge ship, like one of those massive container liners or freighters coming from the open ocean to a small harbor and trying to park. It's kind of like trying to fit a bus into a tiny space. Well, that's where the tugboats will come in. Even though we're much smaller, we have very powerful engines and they're incredibly strong. We can push and pull and guide these huge ships with amazing accuracy. How does it work? Well, you can see there's a picture behind me of a ship with two of our tugboats attached. So when that big ship gets close to the harbor, the tugboats will sail out to meet them. They'll get into position around the ship, attach ropes, and start pulling and pushing it around. This is especially important when the weather is bad because wind and waves can make docking a ship really tricky. Tugboats will help slow the ship down, guide it perfectly into place next to the dock, kind of like putting a large puzzle piece into place. The people driving the tugboats, they have to be very skilled, and they're going to work very closely with the ship to make sure everything goes smoothly. Your opportunity as an aspiring mariner has a few different pathways to working with SAAM. The first step is to enroll in a marine college program at an institute like BCIT or Western Maritime. Here, you can get a certificate in bridge watch, and this will start your career in the marine industry. These courses will give you foundational experience to be safe on the water and the knowledge that employers are looking for in potential applicants. Now that you've received an appropriate background education and you're ready to start transitioning from school to work, you can apply for a position on board one of my vessels as a deckhand. Once you begin this job, you'll work on the deck of the boat, you'll be in the engine room assisting the engineers, and you'll be in the wheelhouse assisting the captains. You'll work all kinds of hours, all days of the week, and you'll start accumulating sea time towards other qualifications. SAAM will support and fund employee development for future courses. So if you would like to grow into an officer position, you will then be able to choose further career paths into becoming a marine engineer or a captain of one of our ships. Earlier, I mentioned that I'm a port captain. Well, that means I'm an operations manager. I have gone through my sea time qualifications to become an officer and have transitioned into a management role in a corporate setting. Day to day, I'll work to direct our vessels and crew in a way that supports our customers and our community. I'll work with developing safety policies and procedures, deal with emergencies, and work to grow the company as a whole. I love my job because I get to do a lot of diverse things. In a typical month, I could be traveling up and down the coast to our various ports. I could be working off-site with local education institutions to help develop training programs, or I could be traveling to a shipyard in Asia to oversee work on one of our new vessels under construction. Every person's marine career is going to start in a different way. Mine began far away from the ocean. I grew up in Toronto. At the time, my uncle had a little sailboat and he liked to take it out on Lake Ontario. And as I got a little older, he started to bring me out to help with the boat. Over the years, I was a competitive swimmer, I became a scuba diver, and I generally stayed in love with being on the water. After high school, I was still unsure about what I wanted to do, so I decided to enroll in a bachelor degree in business administration. During that time, I assumed I would end up working for a bank or an insurance company, but towards the end of the degree, I was still very much in love with the water, and after traveling around to a few different parts of the world, I decided I was going to have to move closer to the ocean. To do that, I began looking into the different programs the Royal Canadian Navy has available, and I settled on a position as a naval warfare officer. This job involved being responsible for the safe navigation of a ship and felt just like the challenge I was looking for at the time. Applying to the Navy was a very difficult process, took about a year. During that time, there were lots of interviews, medicals, aptitude tests, and a lot of waiting. However, once I received a job offer, the pace picked up pretty quickly. I was off to basic training and eventually ended up posted in Victoria with the Pacific Fleet. I spent a few years going through training courses. I served on board the HMCS Winnipeg and went on to become a Navy diver. After I had completed my professional training and became a Lieutenant Navy, I decided I was going to leave the military and move to Vancouver. Once there, I was able to take those experiences and transition them into a civilian operations role with SAAM Towage. Here, I started learning about the commercial side of our port operations, understanding just how vital a role the shipping industry plays to the Canadian economy, and started growing professionally in our business. SAAM has offered a wide range of opportunities for me. To date, I've worked in logistics, safety, program development, as well as regulation and certification. I'd like to thank you all for listening to my story. I wish you fair winds and following seas.
Thanks for that. I know actually one question that was already thrown out here is if you're in high school and you were to start your university career, would you suggest any sort of classes and or extracurricular that might get you gravitated towards that? And in Mackenzie's case, this is somebody who is well landlocked in Armstrong. So what are your thoughts?
Sure. So certainly engineering is a very strong background. So if you were interested in marine engineering, you could look to that route. The degree that I have in business administration certainly helps if you want to move into management roles within the industry.
Fair enough. I know that there's other questions that are coming up in the chat at this point. It sounds like basically people can come in right out of high school, though, to be able to work and then be able to, from there, possibly get support, maybe with some employers or not, but you can grow within the company. That's that's the reality you found?
Absolutely. It's a very specific business. We promote everybody internally. You can start at an entry-level job straight out of high school. We are going to then promote your education while you work with us. So we're going to fund future courses, give you guidance on advancing your qualifications. We promote our deckhands to engineers. We promote our deckhands to captains. We very rarely hire the senior positions directly. We like to grow our people internally and offer those opportunities.
And you mentioned travel as well. I was unclear if that has been more recent travel or when you were initially doing a lot more of your work. I'm just curious, where did that travel take you, whether it was in the country or outside of the country?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll travel in my role, I'll travel around British Columbia quite a lot. We operate as far north as Prince Rupert and Stewart. We have locations on the island in Port McNeill. And so I'll frequently visit our crews and our boats in those locations. We spoke earlier, and Andra mentioned 2 electric vessels that we recently received that were designed by Robert Allan. Those were constructed in a shipyard just off Istanbul in Turkey. And so I visited the shipyard during those builds as a part of the operational oversight of that work and us onboarding those new pieces of equipment. So really, it can range widely.
Yeah, and Istanbul, very important strategic naval place to be. So that would be a very interesting place to be able to check out. Jeremy has a question here wondering how strong, meaning the horsepower, do your tugboats have? What he says, we've seen damage to bridges by vessels in the news. I can think of, well, the one ship, I guess, that went into Baltimore, albeit I don't know how involved tugs were in that sort of situation. Just wondering if tugboats are the best answer when it comes to safety for those vessels.
Absolutely. So some of our larger escort vessels, they are designed by Robert Allan. They're called 3200 Rastars. They are escort class vessels that have almost 7,000 horsepower. And when you attach them at the stern of the ship, the back of the ship, by a line that creates a bit of a pendulum, you can very effectively rotate them from port to starboard. You can keep them out of any danger and avoid things like that bridge.
And I'm curious, those large vessels that you are moving, like how much could they weigh? Any idea? That may be
Container
one more
ships.
better for Andra, but sorry?
Yeah, I'll defer to the Navarks on that, but I would imagine that they're probably a couple 100,000 ton dead weight. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of weight
Yeah.
for without a doubt.
Yeah.
Once again, Alex, thank you very much for sharing. Once again, I'd still encourage you to put questions in the chat. I know there's one more question, but I'm going to be leaving that for Andra later on to be there, but still feel free to put stuff in the chat as we go forward. We're now going to go to our third speaker, and this time we're going to switch over to the trades in particular. I'm going to introduce you to Isaac Caveran. Sorry if I butchered the name there a bit, Isaac. I got it. Okay, that's great. You're a graduate of the Marine Service Technician Apprenticeship Program and your community outreach person rather at Quadrant Marine. Like many of the other speakers today, you work out of Vancouver. Welcome to the seminar, Isaac. Let's hear your story.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I am a marine service technician. That is a big fancy way of just saying that I work on boats, and that is pleasure craft vessels. So for the purpose of the marine industry, this is everything from, a small 6-foot kayak made of fiberglass to a big 150-foot mega yacht and tugboats. We've actually, not me personally, but I know people that have worked on Robert Allan tugs, servicing them. So marine service technicians don't just, fix this or that or the other thing. They fix everything. It's every trade on a boat. It's electrical, plumbing, fiberglass, welding, woodwork. You think of it, we do it. And one of my favorite parts about this trade is it's not specific to, Vancouver or Victoria. It's just as effective and meaningful a career on lake boats in Vernon, in Salmon Arm. So when I started this industry, You would never guess, but I actually had no interest in the trades. In high school, I did acting program, I did the cooking program, and I went on to pursue a theater degree. With that, I needed money. And lucky for me, a family friend of mine had a hernia and needed help moving a fridge because he works on boats. Big, strong guy. He hired me up, $100 for the day. Isaac, here's a fridge. I need it moved over there. This is an $80,000 paint job. Don't scratch it. And that was that. So big stakes for my first day and big trade job that I had no experience for. However, I had a good work ethic, brought that with me, and that work ethic carried me to being hired part-time, being hired full-time, and then being put through the Quadrant Marine Institute apprenticeship program. With that, sorry, checking my notes. Quadrant Marine Institute is a great training school where they teach MSTs how to do everything on a boat. So when we look at, other trades, you have really a specialty. In Marine Service Technician, you not only have to know your specialty, you have to know how your specialty relates to all of the other specialties on the boat. You're doing an electrical repair on the engine. Well, that engine is connected to the ocean, so you have to know how to fix the plumbing if something starts leaking. With that, Quadrant Marine is a journey person's ticket, not a Red Seal ticket. The only difference with that is Red Seal tickets are a measure of quantity, not quality. So journey person's certificates are actually the same level of training, still a 4-year program, still requires so many hours on the work or on tools. However, the difference is there's not 400 people doing a Marine Service Technician ticket in every province. One example I like to use is embalmers. So the people that prepare dead bodies. There's not 100 people doing that in every province. There's maybe about 50. So it's a journey person's ticket and not a Red Seal ticket, even though it's something used across Canada. Where we look at Marine Service Technicians, in Vancouver, in Victoria, we have companies that have specialized departments. We have companies that, do a little bit of everything. As you move further into the interior, you see people where they're fixing the bilge pumps. They're doing the electronics on the helm. They're fixing the hydraulic steering, the outboards, the fiberglass repair on the actual boat. And so the Marine Service Technician gets to do all of it. It's a diverse workplace. Every day is different. And that's what I love about my job. I get to work on the water, doing something different every single day. My brother is a Red Seal electrician. Love him to bits. He gets to install fire alarms day in, day out, 8 hours a day. Power to him. I could never do that because I like to do something different all the time. And that's the best part of working on boats in the marine service industry, is that I get to do something different every single day. And these skills are transferable. So a lot of times we see in the interior, our students who, I'll get to that in a minute, people who work on boats in the summer will tend to work on RVs and ski-doos and what's the other, snowmobiles in the wintertime, because it's still fiberglass, it's still mechanical repairs, it's still electrical repairs. And these skills are transferable in a lot of different industries. Aerospace is another one. People move from marine to aircraft and then back again, because marine is more challenging. Marine is more technical. It's harder. You have to do better work. So a lot of the things in common with marine service technicians is you're not just doing good work, you're doing great work, because everything you do has to get put through an earthquake when it goes out in the water. And that's what we look at. So after I finished my apprenticeship ticket, I transitioned from working on the boats full-time to working for Quadrant Marine, the school. And I work in recruitment, getting people into the industry, and actually helping our instructors translate their vast pools of knowledge, which if anybody tells you they know it all, they don't. But translating that from their level up here to students, to new journey person apprentices, and helping them become, skilled, masterful technicians. Pay range tends to start around, I want to say 25 an hour in Vancouver, at least, and Victoria that I know of. Goes to about 50. It pays a little less than other union trades, but it's better work environment. It's a more diverse work environment. It's a more exciting work environment. So the personal satisfaction and the rewarding aspects of this trade kind of balance that out. I eat lunch every day on the water. You can't beat that. So it's indoors, it's outdoors, depending on, what kind of shipyard you're in. Are you working on trailer boats, or are you working on a massive 150-foot yacht? One of my favorite boats that I ever worked on, big, say 87-foot yacht, and had a garage inside, and a smaller boat actually came out. And so we had to work on both these boats at the same time quite often. And all these boats, the small one and the big one, they have the same systems. They have plumbing, they have electrical, they have engines, they have hydraulics. We have to be able to work on it all as the Marine Service technician. So that's my job. A lot of different weird things put together in one. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you, Isaac. That was great. And thank you for making the connection for me in respect to, like, you're essentially do the exact same thing as an RV service technician for all intent and purpose, right? Because they do all sort of the jack or Jill of all trades. That would include that vessel there. Do you run into situations where, I know you say a lot of the work you do is on the water and at the water. Do you sometimes have to take in vessels though at dry dock or anything like that to be able to work on them that way?
Yeah, absolutely. So Marine Service technicians build, service, maintain, refit, and repair boats. So it's everything from, when Andra, the naval architect, submits a drawing to a company, the builders are MSTs on the dry docks. When that boat comes in to get refit, it's an MST doing that refit. When that boat needs servicing, it's an MST that does that. And it's on the water, it's on the dry docks. Sometimes it's a little bit of both. Sometimes it's supposed to be on the dry docks and it's in the water. Say no to those jobs. Don't do those jobs. Always work safe. If you take one thing away, even if it's not in Marine, always be safe in your work. Please, nobody get hurt when they go into a career.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm glad you brought up the issue of safety too, because I know one of the things with trades and being on the tools is sometimes there are some aspects of your body that may feel the wear and tear through time. Is there stuff that you have learned either yourself or dealing with some of the other veterans within the industry as to what sort of things to watch out for and be protective of so that you are healthy going forward?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing we see in the marine industry, in the pleasure craft side, is what we call cowboys, people who play fast and loose with safety. And so one of the big things is when you're working with dangerous chemicals like fiberglass resin and epoxies, a lot of people don't wear their respirator. Even something like bottom paint. Bottom paint is something we use to protect boats from bacteria and fungus and different marine growth in the water. Bottom paint is a very toxic substance. I worked with somebody who decided not to wear the respirator one day, and he got copper poisoning from breathing it in for 4 hours. So he was off of work for 2 weeks just because he didn't want to be safe. He didn't want to wear a respirator. And wearing a respirator is no big thing. You see it all the time in different trades. And it's important because it keeps you safe. It keeps you on the job longer. And there's no technician out there who's in the 60s, 70s, 80s, in the retirement age that needs to be replaced that hasn't been working a safe career. It's really those cowboys that are falling off the wayside because they're getting injured and they're not able to keep working in complicated environment like a boat, because it's not always, standing upright on a ladder. Sometimes you're crawling in a tiny hole and it's upside down and you're a 6 foot tall, 200-pound dude. And the grinder is about this far away from your face and you have to make it work and you have to do it safely.
Yeah, and man, that's a really good point that you made in respect to the chemical and the fiberglass and all those other adhesives that you'd have to work with, because when you do look at work safe situations, one of the largest claims that has been growing all through time is what they call a mesothelioma, or associated with asbestos, right? Just on the off chance, and I know Nestor's typing out something, and I know he has something here, but do you asbestos on boats? I mean, obviously, you still kind of find it on the land, but
I
do
have
you run
seen it.
into it in marine?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what happens with that is there are some times where people will work on their own boats and they don't necessarily know the right tool or the right material to use in a situation. So a common thing with asbestos is somebody wants to insulate their boat to keep it warmer. And we see asbestos in insulation and drywall. And somebody who does drywall in their life and owns a boat will go, I'll just use asbestos in there. That'll be fine. So when people go to service the boat and they open it up and get asbestos, it's a much bigger issue, and it definitely happens with that and other things that are so odd.
Okay.
It's a wonderful career
Yes.
if you want to see odd things.
I thank Nestor for this question. Asking about Quadrant Marine specifically, does it have an institute or a similar status than BCIT? Does it have full recognition by the BC government? What's the range of student fees? That last
Yep.
one you might have a bit of problem with, but yeah.
No, I know all, George.
Okay.
Quadrant Marine Institute is a designated skilled trades BC trainer. So we have the same status as BCIT in terms of the program we're delivering. And actually the standard as a private institution is very rigorous in terms of we have to get all our quizzes, all our exams, all our learning materials approved every 5 years with a panel of industry experts in their field. So because it's, again, working in such a diverse field of trades, this is a lot of people weighing in with expertise and many, hundreds of years collectively of experience weighing in on our subjects every 5 years. And then in terms of student fees, we have comparable tuitions to every single trade school in BC. And then there are tax benefits also for taking apprenticeship programs that more than cover the cost of actually taking them. You actually make money taking an apprenticeship program like Quadrant Marines. And because of how we run, we actually have students in Vernon, Invermere, Bella, Ontario, even Quebec, because we have a hybrid training model that allows us to train students not just in Vancouver or Victoria, where we're based out of. We can train students all over the world, really. But nobody wants to do class at 2 a.m. in the morning, so we've had no luck in the UK.
Okay, fair enough. Hey, Isaac, thank you very much for your insight. Much appreciated. And I do appreciate
you.
the questions that are coming through in the chat at this point as well. So I encourage you to still put those questions in for, the past three presenters that we have. Just stand by, Isaac, and we'll get to you in a little bit. Last but definitely not least, we're going to turn to Michael Lowry now. He's actually the Senior Manager of Communications for Western Canada Marine Response. He's what they call a strategic communications and public relations professional. He has about 15 years experience in domestic and international settings across private, public, and not-for-profit sectors. Michael has a BA, Bachelor of Arts in Communications from the University of Calgary, a BSc, a Bachelor of Science in Politics and International Relations at the London School of Economics. And yes, just like many of the other speakers right now, it's the home office, once again, in the Lower Mainland. So, Michael, thanks a lot for making the time to talk to us today.
Yes, thank you very much. Are we going to try to start with a video, or should we? Wait.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, sorry, I forgot about that prompt. So we can do that. That'd be great. Volume not on, though. That's the only thing.
I've been a sailor my whole life, around the water all the time. And when the pandemic hit, it was time to reevaluate and wanted to change career.
The idea of being able to continue a career on the water that was also environmentally conscious and aware was really appealing. WCMRC is an organization that cleans up oil spills in the marine environment along the BC coastline.
We're out here, we have a beautiful coastline, beautiful waters, and we're here to work with the communities and make sure that it's pristine going forward.
When you work at WCMRC, you kind of have to be a jack of all trades or a Jill of all trades.
I think that you can make this what you want it to be, and I think that there are a lot of different paths you can take.
I definitely feel like WCMRC has been supporting me in my growth in my own career. there has been opportunities to continue to take courses while I'm still full-time employee. And I'm then able to turn around and apply that knowledge and just be another valuable member of the team.
There is no typical day. Everything is different.
I could be a deckhand one day, I could be driving a small boat the next, or I could be hauling an engine out of a boat.
Doing chart work to maintenance, to driving boats, deploying gear, doing exercises, working with remote communities to identify sensitive areas.
Weekly, we are out actually training, performing GRSs, or geographical response strategies. And we get to use that equipment that we have, and we get to familiarize ourselves even more with the coastline.
I love going to work every day and feeling like I'm doing something that's taking care of our planet, and I'm doing something that matters.
I really enjoy the people that I work with. I enjoy the opportunities that I get. I get to explore the coastline. I get to see things that people don't normally get to see every day.
The guys I work with and women, they're like family. And that makes you feel even safer when you're out there on the water.
The idea behind WCMRC is that we are a family-focused company, and part of that is making sure that everyone is safe. It's making sure that people get to go home to their families at the end of the day. All of our training has a huge safety focus to it, which I think just, it just sets you up for success.
That's the really nice thing that WCMRC offers, is that internal support of the crew, of the staff.
I definitely recommend working in the marine industry. It's a really dynamic and growing industry, and there's a lot of room for development. There's so much opportunity for females right now in this industry, especially. I think that women are having a really positive influence on this company and on this industry as a whole. There's not a day that I don't enjoy going to work, and I always come off the water with a huge smile on my face. So that to me is a great job.
Excellent. Yeah, so as you heard in the video, the company I work for is called Western Canada Marine Response. We've been around actually since the 70s, but really only became a significant marine company in the last 5 or 10 years. We began as an industry co-op back in the mid 70s. And so at that point, there was actually a lot more refineries in Burrard Inlet. So those refineries kind of pooled their assets together to form this industry co-op called Burrard Clean. And it was really only looking after spills that happened in Vancouver Harbor. And then in 1989, there was a significant spill in Alaska called the Exxon Valdez. Hopefully most people are familiar with that. Sometimes the younger generation have not heard of that spill, which is quite interesting. But that was a massive environmental disaster up in Alaska. And the Canadian government was quite concerned that a spill like that could happen in Canada. So they put together a panel to kind of look at making sure that A, that didn't happen in the first place, and B, that if it did happen, that there was response in place. So they created the spill response regime that's in place today. And what that means is that all vessels that could possibly cause pollution, large vessels, container ships and whatnot, and the oil industry, they must pay for spill response to be in place on the coast. So they're forced to be members, or they're required to be members of a response organization such as ourselves, and we're certified by Transport Canada to then clean up spills on their behalf. And so that's the model that's in place. And so we station our bases and our assets around where the risk is highest on the coast. And the vessel traffic that comes into the Port of Vancouver, a lot of it comes through designated shipping lanes along the coast around Victoria. And so we've stationed our vessels, or our bases and our vessels around that area. And we do have a number of bases on the coast. We've got 9 bases in total. Some of those one of those is up in Prince Rupert, but a lot of them are on Vancouver Island. So we have bases in Nanaimo, Port Renfrew, Victoria, Vancouver and the Fraser River. So if you work for an organization, essentially you can work out of any one of those locations. And those bases really kind of came online in the last 5 or 6 years, mostly because of concerns about the Trans Mountain project, which people might be familiar with. So that project, which has come online this month, is going to introduce more tanker traffic to our coast. So they worked with us to enhance spill response on the coast, which meant basically cutting down response time significantly. So we had to really build out our fleet and build some new vessels, and actually some of those were designed by Robert Allan. So this industry is quite tightly knit. Actually, you can work for one company and transition to another company quite quickly. So that's the sort of the program that's in place with on the West Coast. A lot of people sort of talk about spill response as the fire department or the fire engines for the coast, and that's a good analogy. In terms of my career, like some of the other panelists here, I did not start on the coast. I actually began my career in the prairies in Calgary, Alberta, and I started with a communications degree from the University of Calgary. I then began working in the publishing side of things in Calgary for an educational publishing house. I eventually kind of transitioned over to the coast. I was always fascinated and loved the ocean, and I started working for a public relations firm in Vancouver that specialized in media relations. And one day we got a call from a client that said, look, there's this project up in Prince Rupert, the Northern Gateway project, and it's an oil pipeline, and people are concerned about spills, and they're calling us to figure out what we would do about that. And I was kind of surprised. So really, there's a company that actually does that work. And so they had long prided themselves on being the best kept secret on the coast, and that doesn't really work very well when you're going to people are concerned about oil spills. So I started working with them, and then eventually came on full time. A lot of the work that I do is going into communities and working with communities to make sure that they feel prepared for a spill. There's a lot of concerns and fears on the coast about spills. So we want to make sure that people know what's going to happen and what to expect in those situations. And what's interesting about this this industry as well is that it fits within the emergency response field. So that's another kind of area that you can look at. It's we run our spills and our exercises using the incident command system, which is a system that is developed actually in California to manage emergencies that could happen. So in that case, wildfires, for example. And so that system has evolved, and it's used still in BC today to manage wildfires. If there's an earthquake, the incident command system will be used as well. But it's also used for big oil spills. And so if a spill happens, you'll see a lot of vessels on the water, but behind the scenes, there's going to be a command post, and there's going to be people sort of, planning out what to do on the next day. So there's also an interesting emergency response side to the work that we do. And in my role in that situation would be the public information officer. So helping to get information out to the public about the spill, but there's a lot of different roles that fit into the emergency response side. So, I think if you're thinking to yourself, I'd love to work on the water, I'd like to protect the environment, help with emergencies. This is a pretty fascinating organization to work for. And thank you for your time today. Back to you, George.
All right, thanks a lot there, Michael. I'll claim full naivety here on my part. Besides oil, are there any other type of spills that can take place on the coast that involve ships that you would respond to? Just curious.
Yeah, and I think, just to kind of build on that for a second, I know a lot of people, when they think about oil spills or concerns about oil spills, they do think of, the oil tankers and barges and whatnot, vessels that are carrying oil as cargo. But in fact, it's pretty much any vessel that's on the coast that could cause an oil spill. And those are mostly the ones that we respond to. It could be a barge run aground or a fishing vessel. So those are all the potential sources of pollution. And those are typically what we're responding to on an annual basis. We get about 20 calls that happen, annually on average. We are designed, to answer your question, the purpose of our business is to deal with petroleum spills. But actually, just last week we responded to a tallow spill at West Coast Reduction. So we've done tallow, we've done canola, we've done wood chips. In fact, but the majority of what we deal with is oil.
Okay, yeah, just wanted to make sure on that. Thanks for clarifying that, Michael.
sure.
So I will open this now generally to questions. And these questions could be to anybody, Michael, Andra, Isaac, Alex, and of course, Julia, who's over there in Ottawa as well. So I'll open it up there. So please put your responses in the chat if you have any other general questions. I do know that the first question I want to throw out is to Andra, which was asked before by Keegan, and just wondering how long does it take to build a boat from design and now it's on the water? You know, the ceremonial champagne bottle broken on the hull and there it goes down the ramp type of thing. Like, how long does that generally take?
So again, yeah, it really depends on the size of the vessel. So for our kind of, yeah, regular size tugboats, will take anywhere from 4 to 6 months to design. So that's just the boat is on paper. And then depending on if there's already a shipyard selected or things like that and how fast they are with getting going. So it could take the whole process from when we get a signed contract to when the boat is delivered and, as you say, on the water, ready to sail, about 2 to 3 years. So we actually have a lot of the shipyards we work with, they do something as they call it building on speculation. So they have a design already. They just start building without necessarily having an owner that is ready to buy it. So that when somebody comes looking for something, they can kind of pick something off the shelf, call it, but can still customize a little bit. But you know that process has already started, so they can cut out a year or a year and a half out of that process. So yeah.
Okay.
But for smaller vessels, could take much less than that, and for larger vessels, we could spend a year or a year and a half in just the design phase, and the build will take much longer. So, yeah, it really varies.
Okay. I'm going to switch to a general question, just to for three of the four of you, because Isaac kind of already given this sort of idea. And once again, you don't have to divulge any personal information. What I'm interested in knowing, and I imagine some of the people as well that are watching right now, is what is salaries like, generally speaking, in respect to specific jobs? So once again, you don't have to necessarily share what you make, but if you can give sort of an industry range of this is where a person would start in the business, and then when they become more senior, they could possibly make this amount of money based on, you know, $2024, I guess. I could pick on any one of you to go and start, but I'll leave it to volunteers to throw out where to go first. Looks like Michael might.
Yeah, happy to address this first. We actually just did a presentation at school yesterday, and we're talking about salaries. And so the the interesting thing about the career path in the marine sector is it's quite easy to get started. First of all, you can go get a bridge watch rating program from BCIT, a 4-month program, which is free if you're if you identify as woman or if you have Indigenous ancestry. So that's a fantastic start. And from there you can get a job as a deckhand. The ranges, there's different ranges, but at our organization it's just about $78,000 starting salary a year, and so that's after just 4 months of education, which is fantastic. As you go up into vessel captain, you're looking at closer to just under $100,000 a year, so almost 6 figures if you become a vessel captain. And you can start as a deckhand, and most companies will allow you to train on the job as well to get more sea time and whatnot. So we've had people that have started at our company as deckhands and have moved their way up to different size tickets, 60 ton, 150 ton, 500 ton. And then the third kind of career path is the marine engineer path. That requires a bit more education. It used to be 4 years at BCIT. They've actually just reduced that to a 3-year program, which is great news for the sector. Marine engineer is one of the most in-demand jobs in Canada. And then that starting salary is just above $100,000, at least in our organization. So very competitive wages. It's a great place to kind of start making really good money quite quickly after high school.
Okay, thanks for sharing. Nestor has another question here. Other than Quadra and BCIT, or Quadrant, I guess. Could you please name other BC institutions that form technical professionals for the marine environment? So where else could you go in BC to get some of this training?
So I know VIU has a program, and there's one other place, and it's based out of Nanaimo, and I can never remember the name, so I'm going to Google it now for you all. I'll get back to you on that.
Were you thinking of the Western Maritime Institute?
Yep.
Yeah, there's a couple on Vancouver Island. So Camosun is a marine school. Western Maritime Institute and Ladysmith is one, and then BCIT is another one on the mainland.
Okay.
I can
Thanks for
actually
sharing.
drop a link in the chat that has a list of schools in BC.
Oh, that'd be good. That'd be good. I know, like I say, there are career coordinators and counselors that are watching this at this point, so they'd probably be interested in that sort of information. Anybody else to share any other information?
Just on the
Connected
salary
with that?
question, if you wanted us to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can only speak to our company again because it's like the consulting companies, they all vary because it all depends how much work they're actually getting or kind of how many employees they have. So we're lucky we have about 100 employees. I said we're getting up there in the size of company. So for naval architects, I don't really know about marine engineers. Starting salary, if you're just straight out of university, kind of zero experience, would be somewhere between 50 to 60,000 a year, I think. And then as you move up, like, it just kind of keeps increasing from there at the sort of higher echelons. I can never say that word properly. Echelons, yes. Thank you. Yes. In the design team, I think, definitely over six figures is where we are at right now. And we do, because we're doing well, we pay several bonuses a year. So it's not just like one big chunk at the end. It's as we're doing well, we share the profits with the whole company. And there's a lot of other kind of like, you get all your benefits paid for. We have a health and wellness spending account, so you can get other things paid for. There's a lot of sort of social activities that the company puts on. So, but you could also work for a very small company, maybe just 2 or 3 people that are a design office, and we wouldn't have all those. So yeah, it really, really depends.
Okay. Still inviting people to put questions in the chat. We just have a couple of more minutes left for that. I will throw out this, and we kind of heard already, especially for marine engineers, there seems to be a real demand for that profession at this point. For yourself, Michael, maybe on the boots on the ground with yourself, Isaac, and yourself, Julia, as well. Are there any other professions within the marine industry that certainly there are shortages, or there's real feared shortages that could be coming up?
I can answer that if you want, George. So there, in particular, on board, I would say every kind of vessel that operates in Canada, whether you're a ferry or a tugboat or a barge or a cargo ship, Coast Guard vessel, RCN vessel, they're all very much experiencing shortages of all the positions that are on board vessels. So things like marine navigation officer positions, marine engineering positions, mechanical assistants, sort of more entry-level ones. So particularly the marine officer positions and the marine engineering officer positions are the most critical because we do have a lot of people who are retiring in those positions, which required a lot more experience and a building up of education over time. And so those ones are very critical right now. There's also positions that are in, for instance, shipyards that are in great demand. The various trades that were required, welders, millwrights, a lot of project engineers, project managers, those are all in demand as well, as we have a national shipbuilding strategy in Canada, and many of those vessels for the Coast Guard and the Navy that are being replaced are being built in the different shipyards in Canada. And there's also regular work that has to be done as well to maintain all the commercial fleets as well. So there's quite a bit of demand in that area too. I could sort of say, even in things like being a marine lawyer or being a marine insurance person or an inspector, or they're all kind of related careers that require specialized maritime experience and training over time, and they are all kind of connected. And people will go from being a captain on a vessel to being a marine inspector and so forth. So there's just a lot of demand throughout the entire industry because of the fact that our workforce is getting older and retiring. We really need new people to come in.
Thanks for that overview, Julia. I don't know if anybody else wants to jump on at this point, or that seemed like it was a pretty good overview, but Isaac, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I got a small bonus to that. One thing that kind of gets missed is the dual ticket option. People with more than one Journey Person or Red Seal ticket become increasingly invaluable in every sector. But here's a hot tip. If anybody wants to be an HVAC specialist, there's one person who does that in Vancouver and one person who does that in Victoria. If you're an HVAC specialist and you specialize in marine, you will never look for work a day in your life. So those specialized tradespeople within the trade, that is an invaluable opportunity moving forward.
And I know HVAC right now on land is one of the, if not the highest paying trades that is out there at this point, period. End of discussion. We have probably time for one more quick question. And once again, we thank you for that, Nestor. And it's specifically for you, Andra. I don't know if you saw this in the chat or not, but other than marine engineers, what other type of professionals participate in designing ships? So who are the people that are there to assist you in your work?
I will answer that. I just wanted to add also to the last comment quickly. One interesting job is that would be kind of more international in other parts of the world is kind of servicing wind turbines for offshore installations. That's totally different, but also in the marine sector. So again, you could have very different kind of how you got there and training. It would be the same as servicing wind turbines on land, but you would be doing it offshore. So that's also kind of interesting stuff. Okay, as to the question, so yeah, naval architects are also engineers. I'm not sure if I made that clear, but in our office, so we have hydrodynamicists. So they're most of them have PhDs from universities. They're doctors of hydrodynamics, basically. So they're very good about telling you what's happening with a boat in water. It's very different than it's kind of like talking about aerodynamicists for people that design cars or rockets or things like that. We can also work if, there's so many specialized people. If you're working on ice-breaking vessels, there's ice-breaking experts. This is all they do is design ice-breaking vessels. There's noise consultants that you can work with. So to keep a noise on board ships quiet, and they can help you kind of mitigate some of those risks. Yeah, there's a lot of different kind of specialties. You don't always have time or the resources or the funding to engage everybody on a project, but it does depend. I mean, if you're working for a yacht designer, for example, money is no object. That owner wants their boat to be the best. They will pay anything they need. If you're working in the commercial sector, money is kind of first. You want the best product for the cheapest price. So there's some compromises that need to be made. Yeah.
Hey, thank you for sharing that, Andra. I think we are at that magical time where that's it. We don't have any more time here. And just so you know that this is the final virtual career seminar for the school year. If you wish to be involved in next year's sessions, please contact me at the email that you see there. And you can even look in the chat. I put in my phone number there where you can text or chat to get hold to me, or of course, grichard@sd83.bc.ca. And of course, for the CMCF, for more information, it's imaginemarine.ca with, of course, the hyphen in the middle, and the email for info@image or imagine, sorry, -marine.ca. On behalf of the CMCF, School District 83, Julia, the panelists, myself, thanks a lot for attending and for learning something about careers in the marine sector. Have a great day of learning. Cook's Jam and Ilie.